First item is Sunday's our vice chair's birthday, Senator Clay's. So happy birthday. Any bill introductions? Seeing none, we'll start out with the budget reports. We'll start out with the Transparency and Ethics Committee. Senator McGinn.
All right, we will begin with the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board. The agency has a revised estimate of $981 from special revenue funds. It's the same as 2022, and they also have the same amount of employees at 9.5. Committee accepted the governor's recommendations. And then for, what is this? Looks so funny. Okay, for 2023, the revised estimate was $988,000 from special revenue bonds, which is an increase of $20,300 or 2.1 above the 03 amount. The increase is due to the continued funding of licensing specialist position related to the passage of HB 2066 concerning occupational and professional licensing. The agency also requests their 9.5 FTE, which is 0.5 above the approved amount, increases to maintain the agency's current FTE increase from 2022 due to the passage of House Bill 2066. And the committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. So with that, I move approval of the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board for 22 and 23.
I have a motion, a second by Senator Clays. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, we have the Real Estate Appraisal Board. Really no changes here. Their estimate is $340,800 and 2 FTEs, and the committee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 2022. And then they have a revised estimate in 2023 for $344,800 from special revenue, same FTEs at 2, and the Senate Transparency Ethics accepted the governor's recommendation for 2023. So if there are no questions, I would make a motion to approve the Real Estate Appraisal Board for 22 and 23.
Motion and a second by Senator Clays. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We'll move to the Real Estate Commission, and the agency requests their revised estimate of $1.3 million from special revenue, increase of $21,600 or 1.6% above. Their estimate includes 12 FTEs, and this is an increase of a 0.3 FTE. I thought I heard at one of our meetings that if it's less than a 0.5 FTE, we didn't count it. Does anybody want to say why we're counting a 0.3? One person was special and the other wasn't. Okay. The Senate committee recommended the governor's recommendation for 2022. And in 2023, the agency requests a revised estimate of 1.4, all from special revenue fund for 23, increase of $27,600 or 2.1% above the 23 amount. They request an enhancement for legal representation by the Attorney General, $7,100, and this agency also increased contractual services expenditures by $25,000 to administer background checks required for the original license application. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation bills the agency for fingerprinting background criminal and history reports, and the increases are partially offset by the reduction in travel costs and the agency includes 2.0 positions. Yes, Martin. Martin here? There you are. So here's what we're learning. You don't have to. Okay, thank you. We do have a typo in the print. But, so it's really 12 and on FTEs. But what we started to see, and I talked to JG, I want to look into this, but for some reason, these fee boards are tied in with when we increase bids, because bids increased, they could increase. And I think we were just trying to fix bids. So I want to look at that statute. Just Senator Solntrop gave me an idea the other day about why tie it to bids? Why don't we just tie it to legislative pay? You know, so we know that we may continue to have a problem with bids, and if we have to increase bids again, that means we're increasing their opportunities as well. So this 7,100, I believe, for the Attorney General was able to raise the rates just because of the bids increase. So I'll be looking into that statute, so we may see that again. So I just wanted to let the committee be aware of that. All right, I believe I got through 2023. Are there any questions for the Real Estate Commission? Seeing none, I move approval of the 2022-2023 Real Estate Commission budget.
Second by Senator Clays. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have the Board of Accountancy. They estimate expenditures of almost $441,000, all from the Board of Accountancy fee. And their estimate's the same as 2022, approved by the 21 Legislature. They estimate an increase in expenditures for salary and wages due to base rate adjustments and fringe benefits. And the increase is partially set off or decreased by the expenditures for the information technology expenses as the agency begins to transition to the Board of Healing Arts hosted licensure database system. They have 3 FTEs, and the committee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 22. For 23, the agency estimates $443,300, all from the fee funds. For 23, and the request is the same as their 23 approved amount, agency estimates increased salary expenditures while the retiring executive director trains the new executive director. This increase is partially offset by the decrease in the technology expenditures as the agency completes transition to new licensure hosted by the Board of Healing Arts. Agency has 3 FTEs. The committee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 23. Are there questions?
Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this new licensure database system, do staff or do you, Chair, do you have any idea if other agencies have also adopted that database system?
Martin says that he does not know that any other agencies have adopted that.
Is that something we could have staff look into? Because I know over the years we've tried, every agency had sort of a different database system, and they were paying for staff to do that. And it was a good efficiency move, but I know there were some complications with that. So I'd be interested in just getting some kind of an indication. If it works for accountancy, it probably would work for BSRB or nursing or some of these other agencies, and maybe it would be a easier system to maintain. So just raising that. And I don't know if you've heard, as you looked at agencies, if that was a problem in terms of their database system. But historically, I think it's been an issue for different agencies, how they keep track of their licensure and the glitches that they've had with it.
We're really not seeing a lot. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
I move we approve the budget for the Board of Accountancy for 22 and 23.
We have a motion, a second by Senator Clays. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have the Board of Veterinary Examiners. And the agency estimates a revised 22 expenditures of $354,500 from the Veterinary Examiners Fee Fund, which is an increase of $18,500, 5.5% over 22 approved amount. It's primarily caused by the agency's 5 supplemental requests for bonuses for investigators and increased costs of attorney fee, rent, travel, and office supplies. It's also caused by an increase in expenditures for group health insurance, for a new executive director, and a new administrative assistant. The governor recommends the 22 expenditures of $339,745, all from the Veterinarian Examiner's Fee Fund. This is a decrease of $14,800, or 4.2% below the agency's 22 revised estimate. The decrease is due to the governor not recommending the agency's supplemental request for bonuses for investigators and increased cost of attorneys' fees, rent, travel, and office supplies. The committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 2022 and made some adjustments. Add $4,250 from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee Fund for attorney fees in 2022. The agency transitioned from utilizing the Office of the Attorney General for legal fees to a contractual attorney. Add $2,400 from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee Fund for rent and utilities in 22. The agency estimates an increase of rent of $300 at its previous location, and the agency did not pay utilities. Pay for utilities at its new location, agency estimates $2,100. Add $2,600, all from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee Fund for other contractual services in 2022. The amount, $1,700, is budgeted for increased travel expenditures for new board members who must travel further than previous board members. The agency estimates increased expenditures for the contract with the Office of Information Technology Services and other communication, creating an increase of $906. I will move on to 23. Agency revised estimate for 23 expenditures of $3,051,671, all from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee. This is an increase of $15,500, or 4.6% above the 23 approved amount. The increase is primarily caused by the agency's 5 supplemental requests for increased funding for attorney fees, rent, travel, office supplies, and 2 Adobe Acrobat Pro licenses. I didn't know they had those anymore. Anyway. The governor recommends 23 expenditures of $341,530, all from Veterinary Fee Fund, and the decrease of $10,100, or 3% below the 23 estimate. Decrease is due to the governor not recommending the agency's supplemental request for attorney fees, rent, travel, office supplies, and the purchase of 2 Adobe Acrobat Pro license. Subcommittee agreed with the governor's recommendations with the following adjustments. Add $4,250 from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee for attorney fees for year 2023. Agency transition from utilizing the Attorney General to contracted attorney. Add $3,000 from the Veterinary Examiner's Fee Fund for rent utilities for 23. Agency estimates the increase in rent $900 at the previous location. The agency did not pay utilities, so to pay utilities at the new location, they estimate $2,100. Add $2,112, all from the Examiner's Fee Fund for the contractual services of 23. This is $1,700, is budgeted for increased travel expenditure for new board members who must travel further than former board members. Agency estimates increased expenditures for this contract with the Office of Information Technology Services and other communication costs, creating an increase of $412. I will share there was another discussion item on here. and I mean, this body could look at it, or maybe I'll draft something, but we have a problem with not having enough large animal veterinarians. And I remember a few years ago, I think it was floated, and we'll have to ask staff to research this, but something to be similar to the rural doc program we have in Wichita, to encourage or increase the amount of large animal veterinarians across our state. And we do have the new director here. If with permission of the chair, if you would just give us a little short synopsis of, your story was when you started your practice, how many large animal veterinarians in the area you had compared to today.
Turn the button on there and then state your name for the committee, please.
Thank you, Senator Billinger. I am Mark Olson, and I am the Executive Director for the Kansas Board of Veterinary Examiners, and I appreciate the question. I served as a veterinarian in western Kansas. I had practice in Norton and Oberlin and Hoxie, and through the 38 to 40 years that I practiced, I was privileged to hire 12 veterinarians. When I first started, I worked in 2 counties, and as we expanded our practice and more veterinarians were leaving the area, I worked in 25 counties in Kansas. When I sold my last practice, I was privileged to be able to recruit large animal veterinarians to come to our area. We're a very progressive practice, and there are things that have changed that have, with economic demands and the needs for getting more funding into the veterinary schools, that we get more out-of-state students, and we don't have as many people that are able to stay in Kansas. And so I know there's a separate bill that's being introduced to try to help with that, is going to be talked about. But Kansas is a strong agriculture state, and I'm a farm boy, and I appreciate what the senators and the representatives do to represent this great state. And I would ask that you would just consider what would be the best way to serve the public in regards to veterinary service across our entire state, so that our animals are cared for and our food lines are protected properly. And I'm willing to help in any way that I can in regards to that. And so you have other questions?
You went from how many veterinarians to how many in all those county areas? I thought you said around 4 or 5.
Yeah, when I started, obviously, I was the youngest veterinarian out there, and now I'm one of the oldest veterinarians, but there are several of those communities that, when I first started, there was veterinarians in every county, and now there are counties that do not have veterinarians at all, and I think that's what you want to know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Saltram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sir, thanks for being here. Do we have any reciprocity with veterinarians in our surrounding neighbor states where they can come across the line and practice in our state and vice versa?
When I went to veterinary school, there was reciprocity with the state of Nebraska, and they could come to our state and be trained and be able to work there. Through the years, that has changed, and the reciprocity with Nebraska is with Iowa State University. I'm not familiar, and I'm not directly involved with that to know what other reciprocities are involved presently, Senator Solentrup.
Okay. I think we'll probably look into that and see if that might be at least a temporary solution.
Yeah, I think if we can fill the pool with Kansas residents, that would be great. But if we can't, we need to look at that out-of-state pool. There are Kansas students that apply for veterinary school right now that don't get into Kansas, and they have to go to other states. And they want to come back to Kansas. And if we could figure out a way to enhance those people to come back, because they have added costs going out of state to get their education and serve into Kansas, I think that would be something we could really take a look at.
Any other questions for Mark? Seeing none, thank you for being here today, Mark. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Senator McGinn.
There's no further questions on this budget. The Board of Veterinary Examiners, I move to approve the budgets for 2022 and the budget for 2023.
It was second by Senator Clays. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator McGinn. Appreciate it. Next, we'll have the Public Health and Welfare Committee. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give everybody a chance to hop over to this committee's reports. I do not serve on this committee, so I watched the videos of their deliberations. So let's not turn this into a game of Stump the Chump. We'll start out with the very funny. We'll start out with the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs Office for FY22. The agency requested a revised estimate of $27 million. 6.5 is SGF. That's an all funds increase of $5 million. Significant items in the agency estimate include the following three bullets that you have in front of you: federal funding, supplemental requests, and capital improvements. I'll let you read through those at your leisure. The agency estimate includes 373 FTEs. That's the same as the approved. If we go to the governor's recommendation, the governor recommended 29 million, 6.5 SGF, an increase of 2.1 million or 7.9 above the agency's revised. The reason for that is an ARPA 24/7 pay plan. The governor recommends adding 2.1 million, all from ARPA, to implement a 24/7 pay initiative recommended by the Spark Task Force Committee and approved by the State Finance Council. That plan provided a base pay increase for hourly and salaried staff, pay differentials for hourly personnel, and a one-time premium pay allocation up to $3,500 for salary staff. The GovRec includes that same 373 FTEs. The Committee on Public Health and Welfare concurred with the governor's recommendation. And I can move to 23 if you'd like to do both and then stand for questions. Very good. We'll go with the agency request, 24.4 million, 9.3 is SGF. That's an all funds decrease of 2.4 million, an SGF increase of 2.8 million. The reason for that is several enhancement requests that you can read in those two bullet points, capital improvements as well. 373 FTEs is unchanged. The governor then recommended 25.5 million, including 10.4 million SGF in expenditures for 23. That's an increase of 1.1 million above the agency request. The reason for that, again, is the 24/7 pay plan. It is 4.1 million in 2023. The governor's recommendation includes 375 FTEs, which is 2 above the agency request. And I will stand for questions on 22 and 23.
Questions for Senator Clays? Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say I was present in this committee and he did a nice job.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not a question, but an observation. We know that 21, 22 was COVID. A lot of the funds were COVID. What I am noticing, though, is our state general fund in 21 was just shy of $6 million. In 23, we're at $10 million. Our federal funds went down from $13 million down to about $9 million in 23. My concern is that trend of reducing our federal funds and supplementing that with state general funds has to be looked at because of that issue. So,
Are you seeking a response?
no, sir.
Anyone else have questions? I guess the only question that I have is on this 24/7 pay plan. Maybe staff could explain this. Are these just temporary raises that once the money's gone, then we either have to find SGF or they go back to their other salary?
Appreciate staff assisting with this. So there are some permanent that are in there. There are also some differential that will presumably go away if they are not funded into the future.
And the other question would be, do they qualify for the 5%?
Yeah, all of them do. That's correct.
So this is over and on top of the 5%, and it's temporary pay raise?
That's what they keep calling it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Clays? Senator Petty?
I would say that in the, this is, that the 24/7 pay plan shift differential is, or no, for the pay plan base increase is a permanent increase to the base plan of nursing staff. So it's not temporary, it's permanent.
So it'll show up on SGF, correct?
It could.
Yeah, no, it will. That's why I said it. Either it's going to show up there or it's temporary, it's going to go away. Right?
Yeah, so both were true. Like I said, the base increase, there are permanent portions of that. The differential is what is allegedly temporary.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs Office budget for FY '22 and '23.
I have a motion. We have a second. Second by Senator Hawk. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to the Kansas Guardianship Program. They are at 1.4 million was the agency request. The governor concurred, the committee concurred in 22, going to 23, and 10 FTEs, that's unchanged. 23, again, 1.4 million requested by the agency. Governor concurred, committee concurred, same 10 FTEs.
Questions on 22 or 23? Seeing none? Senator Clays.
Mr. Chairman, I move the FY '22 and '23 budget for the Kansas Guardianship Program for FY '22 and '23. Yep.
We have a motion. We have a second. Senator Fagg. Seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carry. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will have the Utilities Committee. First, thank you, Senator Clays, for doing that. It wasn't easy when you're not in them committees, so thanks a lot. Next, we'll have a Utilities Committee, and that'll be Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is on the Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board, and the agency estimate revised expenditures of $1.1 million, all from special revenue funds, which is an increase of $99,065 or 9.8% above the FY 2022 approved amount. The agency is authorized each year by language in appropriations bill to carry over unspent funds for consultant services between fiscal years to ensure sufficient funds during years with a higher number of rate cases. In FY 2021, $99,065 was unspent and will be carried over to FY 2022. This carryover accounts for the entire increase of the approved budget. The governor concurs with the agency on FY 2022, and the Senate Committee on Utilities concurs with the governor, FY 2022. I'll save questions that Mr. Hawk probably have for me for the next one. For 2023, the agency requests $1.2 million, all from the Utility Regulatory Fee Fund for FY 2023. This is an all funds increase of $90,968 or 8.2% above the FY 2022 revised estimates. This increase is primarily due to the agency's enhancement request for additional attorney position and an accountant position. The agency states that with the increased number of cases filed and increased complexity of those cases, there is a need for additional attorney and in-house accountant. The increase is partially offset by a decrease in carryover funds that occurred in FY 2022. The governor concurs with the agency on FY 2023, and the Committee of Utilities concurred with the governor recommendation on FY 2023. At this point, I stand for questions.
Questions for Senator Fagg? Senator Hawk.
Thank you. Since Senator Fagg seemed to hint that he wanted a question. In terms of the funding, this is a fee that comes from charges to utilities, gas, electric, telephone. And so with that increase in their budget, is there additional fee revenue that covers that, I assume?
Senator Clays.
Here comes my help.
Okay.
There would be a small increase for the ratepayers.
So we'd have to increase the fees that we're charging in order to fund this in the budget?
Yes.
And then you also mentioned here that they anticipate if we have a higher number of rate cases, they may need more budget authority to do that. Do we have fairly consistent number of rate cases, or are we anticipating with Uri and some of the high gas rates that we've had to look at that people are paying that we're going to have more rate cases?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Senator Fagg.
I move we concur with the governor's recommendation on the FY 2022 and FY 2023 budget on the Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board.
We have a motion, a second by Senator Clays. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to the Kansas Corporation Commission Agency Estimate Revised FY 2022 Expenditures of $25.8 million, all from special revenue funds. This is an increase of $1.6 million or 6.5% above the FY 2022 approved amount. The agency's revised estimate includes increased expenditures primarily in the Utilities Division for consulting fees due to the implementation of the 2021 Senate sub for HB 2072, which allows for securitization of utility assets to recover the energy transition costs and help finance qualified extraordinary expenses during extreme weather events for electric and national gas utilities, subject to the KCC jurisdiction. The agency revised estimate also includes expenditures to begin with the implementation of the new docket management system. The agency's revised estimate includes increased expenditures to plug abandoned wells in accordance with the estimated prioritization schedule. The governor concurs with the agency on the FY 2022 revised estimate, and the Committee on Utilities concurred with the governor's recommendation on FY 2022. I will continue and take one motion on that and questions. For 2023, the agency requests FY 2023 expenditures of $26.8 million, all from special revenue funds. This is an increase of $960,678 or 3.7% above the FY 2022 revised estimate. The agency's request includes funding to purchase the docket management system software. The increase is also due to increased federal funds from the Energy Division. The governor concurs with the agency on its FY 2023 request, and the Committee of Utilities concur with the governor's recommendation for FY 2023. I stand for questions.
Senator McGinn.
Do you know if they're going to plug abandoned water wells or will these be gas and oil-related wells?
Water wells fall under the KDHE,
So that answer would mean that it's gas and oil?
gas and oil.
I wonder if they would be doing any remediation in the areas where there's salt plumes due to wells from the 1920s in the area of south central Kansas. Somebody here from KCC?
Is there anyone on WebEx? Oh, there's somebody here. Okay. Please state your name.
Hello, I'm Peter Barstad, Legislative Liaison for the KCC. We'll be plugging only oil and gas wells with those
No
funds.
remediation, none of this money can be used for remediation in the Burton area where the salt plumes are?
No, I don't believe so, but we can follow up with additional information on that.
I'd like for you to do that.
Will do. Thank you.
Any other questions for Peter before he leaves? Senator Hawk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I heard driving in the other day that Congress is looking at putting additional money into plugging abandoned wells, and there might be more federal funds. And this may be a question for staff too, Mr. Chairman, but if we do get an influx of additional money for plugging wells, how do we handle that relative to your budget? I'm assuming we would still accept that money and I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 or 5,000 abandoned wells that we know about. Is that correct?
Yeah, and again, I'll have to probably follow up with more detailed information, but I know that as we apply for those funds, there's different grants available through the infrastructure bill, and there are certain, we're waiting on some guidance from the Department of Interior on that. But like I said, I can follow up with additional information from our Conservation Division on that.
And for staff, if we get a big influx of federal funds, how do we manage that with our budget since we've approved that? I assume that doesn't impede us being able to accept those funds, but I wanted to make sure.
Get on the right one here. So they can decrease the fee funds. They don't have to spend what they're approved for.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I read an article earlier this week where there's a considerable chunk of money that's supposed to come for plugging wells, so it's a good problem to have. Any other questions? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question. In fiscal year 2021, the FTE positions was 162.8 positions, and now in the governor's budget, we're looking at 205. Can you explain that difference?
The 2021 number doesn't include vacant positions.
Do we know how many vacant positions we're counting on?
41.
41? So have we been operating with 162? What are we going to use these 41 positions for, and do we need them?
They are struggling with that like everyone else is, and they're competing with the private market.
Thank you. But they are funded positions, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Peter? Seeing none, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, and I'll follow up with that information.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Senator Fagg? Seeing none,
Well, it's tough on me.
go ahead and make your motion.
I'll remember that, so I move we concur with the governor's recommendation on the FY 2022-2023 budget of the Kansas Corporation Commission.
A motion is second by Senator Clays. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Fagg. Next, we'll move on to the Executive Subcommittee. Senator Solentrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Take the Kansas Insurance Department first. The agency requests a revised estimate of $37.5 million from all funds for expenditures in FY22. This is an increase of 2.8 or 7.9% above the FY22 approved amount. There are increased expenditures in all major categories of expenditures, including salaries and wages, contractual services, commodities, capital outlay. This amount includes a federal grant award of total $675,000 from the State Flexibility to Stabilize the Market Cycle 2 grant from the Federal Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services. That will be split between FY22 and FY23. The agency estimate also includes 135.5 FTE positions. This is a half position below the 22 approved number. The governor concurs with the agency's 22 revised estimate. The subcommittee concurred with the governor. If there's no objections, I'll go on to 23. FY23, the agency requests expenditures of $37.1 million from all funds. This is a decrease of $437,000 or 1.2% below the FY22 revised amount. The decrease is primarily due to expenditures on contractual services for training accountants and auditors. This amount includes a federal grant award of totaling $675,000 from the State Flexibility to Stabilize the Market Cycle 2 grant. From Federal Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, that will be split between 22 and 23. Agency request includes 135.5 positions, which is the same as 22. The governor concurs, and the subcommittee concurs with the governor. Questions on 22, 23, Kansas Insurance Department?
Any questions for Senator Solentrum?
Yes or no questions?
Seeing none,
Seeing
you can go ahead and make your motion.
Seeing none, I move that we accept the budgets for FY22-23.
Got a motion, a second by Senator Clays. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next budget, Mr. Chairman, with the Office of the Secretary of State. The agency submits a revised estimate totaling $6 million, including $1.6 million from Federal Help America Vote Act funds in 22. This is a decrease of $916,000 below the FY22 approved amount. During the 21 session, the Office of the Secretary of State requested a transfer of $924,000 from the State General Fund to the Democracy Fund to meet state match requirements for supplemental HAVA funds provided through the Federal Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act in FY22. However, the Secretary of State was later notified that such state match requirements could be met with existing resources. The Office of the Secretary of State was able to meet state match requirements in 21, and this additional expenditure is no longer required in 22. The agency requests additional adjustments of $7,800, all from special revenue funds in FY22. These adjustments comprise an increase in salaries and wages and contractual services, which is partially offset by a decrease in aid to local units of government. The agency's estimate also includes 41.5 FTE positions, which is a decrease of 5.5 positions below the FY22 approved number. The agency has been approved for 46 FTE positions since 2018, and the agency revised this request in 22 to more accurately reflect current staffing levels. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate for 22, and the subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation. If I may do so, I'll go on to 23. The agency requests $5.6 million, including $1.2 million from the federal HAVA funds for FY23. This is a decrease of $344,000 below the 22 revised estimate. The agency requests expenditures of $1.6 million, all from special revenue funds for HAVA program FY23. This is a decrease of $353,000 below the FY22 revised estimate. This decrease is attributable Article 2A, decrease of $300,000 expenditures from federal HAVA Title I funds. One-time expenditures for firewall upgrades and computer replacements totaling $50,000, and HAVA state match requirements of $3,085 that occurred in '22 but do not reoccur in '23. The remaining adjustments include an increase of $8,700 in salaries and wages expenditures for FY23. This increase is attributable to an increase in employer contributions for fringe benefits such as group health insurance. The agency requests 41.5 positions, which is unchanged from '22 revised estimate. The governor concurs with the agency's request for '23. Stand for questions.
Questions for Senator Saltron? Seeing none?
Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, I move the 22-23 Office of the Secretary budget be approved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Senator Fagg seconds. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Office of the Attorney General. The agency requests $31.3 million, including $6.7 million SGF in '22. This is an all funds increase of $3.9 million, including SGF decrease of $211,000 from the FY22 approved amount. The all funds increase is primarily attributable to the receipts of opioid litigation settlement funds through the Kansas Fights Addiction Fund and Municipalities Fights Addiction Fund as well. Both funds were established pursuant to the 21 HB 2079, the Kansas Fights Addiction Act, for the receipt of opioid litigation settlement monies. The bill requires that 75% of all monies received by the state pursuant to the opioid litigation in which the Attorney General is involved for the abatement or remediation of substance abuse or addiction be deposited into the KFA fund, and 25% of all monies received be deposited into the MFA fund. The KFA fund monies will be used as grants to qualify applicants for projects and activities that reduce, treat, and mitigate the effects of substance abuse and addiction, and provide support to the prescription drug monitoring program administered by the State Board of Pharmacy. The agency's revised estimate includes $2.6 million in expenditures, all from the KFA fund for this purpose in '22. The agency's revised estimate also includes $995,000 in expenditures, all from the MFA fund in '22. Monies in the MFA fund are to be expended subject to an agreement among the Attorney General, the Kansas Coalition of Counties, and the League of Kansas Municipalities for projects and activities that prevent, reduce, treat, or mitigate the effects of substance abuse and addiction, or to reimburse a municipality for expenses related to previous substance abuse mitigation. The agency request also includes 177.4 FTE positions, which is an increase of 2.1 FTEs above the '22 approved number. In FY22, 2 FTE positions are requested for additional auditors in the Office of Medicaid Inspector General, and .1, again, probably shouldn't have been counted, is requested by the Consumer Protection Division. Governor's recommended expenditures of $31.2 million, including $6.7 million SGF in '22. This is an all funds decrease of $43,000 or 0.1% below the agency's revised estimate, and is due to the governor's recommendation not to adopt the agency's supplemental request of $43,000 SGF into FTE positions for additional personnel in the Office of the Medicaid Inspector for '22. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation with the following adjustment. Add $7.4 million, all from special revenue funds, to adjust receipts for opioid litigation settlement monies in '22. Based on litigation developments after submission of the budget, the Office of Attorney General now anticipates significantly larger recoveries than originally estimated. In particular, the agency estimates an increase of $7.4 million in '22 and $34 million in '23. Pursuant to the Kansas Fights Addiction Act, these settlement monies are deposited into the Kansas Fights Addiction and MFA fund before passing through to applicants and local governments. If no questions, I'll move on to '23 and take them then. The agency requests $26.9 million, including $6.3 million SGF for 23. This is an all funds decrease of $4.4 million and an SGF decrease of $395,000, below the 22 revised estimate. The agency's request includes a decrease of $2.5 million, all from KFA, and a decrease of $944,000, all from the MFA fund for 23. This decrease is due to the receipt of federal opioid litigation settlement monies for FY22, the majority of which will be awarded as grants throughout the state or transferred to Kansas municipalities in 22 and will not reoccur in 23. The decrease in Sgf expenditures is primarily attributable to a decrease in litigation costs, a decrease in operation expenditures for the Solicitor's Division, and a decrease in state match expenditures for the Medicaid Fraud and Abuse Division in 23. The agency requested also included 177.4 FTE positions, which is unchanged from 22. The governor concurs with the agency's request for 23. The subcommittee concurred with the governor's recommendation, with this exception. At $34.2 million, all from special revenue funds to adjust receipts of opioid litigation settlement monies for 23. Based on litigation developments after submission of its budget, the Office of Attorney General now anticipates significant larger recoveries than originally estimated. In particular, the agency estimates an increase of $7.4 million in FY22 and $34.3 million in FY23, pursuant to the Kansas Fights Addiction Act, and these settlement monies are deposited into KFA and MFA funds before passing to the applicants and local governments. Questions?
Any questions? Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Solenthrop, for an excellent report. I just wanted to emphasize this part that the Attorney General mentioned, that we expect to get significantly more money. And last year when we did that Kansas Fights Addiction Act, we thought we would get more, but when they prepared the budget, they didn't have it. And the other thing that, since I've been on Ways and Means, we've struggled to find out a way to fund is K-Trax. And I think that's $200,000. Wanted to check on that. That goes annually, and it comes from this opioid litigation settlement money. So we have that in there, and it's good to have that taken care of in this budget. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Go ahead and make your motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we accept the budgets for 22-23 of the Attorney General, State of Kansas.
I have a motion. We have a second by Senator Clays. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Solenthrop. Next, we're going to take final action on Senate Bill 421. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommends SB 421 favorably. Imagine the chairman will accept seconds.
I'll take a second. Second by Senator Fagg. Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment, and I think the reviser will pass that out. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to explain my amendment?
Yes, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those, instead of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, it's 5.9 of one and a half dozen of the other. And we may not want to do this, but I thought since I made a big deal out of it when we had the hearing the other day, I would give the body the chance to do it. It reminds me of a lot of arguments that I've had with my accountant. And when I win those arguments, I'm usually in trouble when I get audited. So this is an opportunity, if we want to have this money tracked back through the Department of Education where it came from. Probably makes no difference if we pass this amendment in terms, or if we don't pass this amendment, whether or not Capers gets the money and we pay off the layering. But it would track it back through the Department of Education. And so I'll certainly be open to that, and I'll move it whenever appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, I move that we adopt this amendment.
We have a second. Senator Petty seconds. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the maker of the motion, so this would create an increase in the Department of Education budget of $253 million in FY22, and then in FY23, there would be a $253 million decrease. Correct?
It certainly looks like that would be the case. I'd let staff or the revisor tell me if that's correct or not correct. Would it show as a decrease then? I mean, there'd be a decrease from what the 22 budget showed if the increases. Yeah, yes.
Yes, okay. So this committee would be voting to add $253 million, but at the same time, we would be accused of, in future years, decreasing the amount of money going to the Department of Education by over $250 million. And I know all of us have historical context in mind, and we'll all be very fair to one another, and when election season comes around, we'll all gather around the campfire and say, you know, pat on the back. We passed Senator Hawks' amendment, and it was all just fine, and we all did it with the best of intentions. But I have a strange feeling that at some point down the road, we're going to run into you voted to cut education. And I'm not willing to do that for an accounting clerical task, so I'm going to oppose this amendment. Senator, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments, Senator Alley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure I understand the accounting mechanism here, but I tend to agree with Senator Clays that this needs to be done, the money needs to go to the Capers, and keeping them out of the education, keeping them out of it, I think is the best method, letting it go straight to Capers. So I will also be voting no on this.
Any other? I would just mention that in 2019, we did Senate Bill 9, which put some extra money into Capers, and it went just like this. It went from the SGF right to Capers. So I agree with the others. Senator Hawk.
Yes, thank you. And just one, so this was the governor's budget recommendation, and I have a thing to fix on the bill that I introduced the other day after we get done with this. But the only advantage, other than listening to what was recommended in terms of the budgeting office, is it might show an accurate maintenance of effort, which might pay off for us in the future in terms of looking at maintenance of effort. But as the Senator from Saline says, that might also look like a negative in an out year thing. So I think he's correct about that. But it would more accurately reflect the accounting practice of how we put the money in there. So I give the body the opportunity to do what is recommended from the budgeting and accounting standpoint, but I think there are good arguments on both sides of this. So I still stick with it. It's 5.9 of one and a half dozen of the other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I would suggest they look back to 2019, see how they handled that in their accounting process. So Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, Senator, you can move your motion.
I move my amendment.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Motion fails. Back on the bill, Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there are no more questions, I move SB 421.
Second by Senator Hawk. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Senator Hawk, you said you had something else?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I messed up the other day. I know that. I knew it would happen someday. I just didn't know it would come this soon. I got the wrong RS number on the bill I introduced, so I'd like to withdraw my request that I had on February 9th that the committee introduced 22 RS 2538, and I instead request the introduction of 22 RS 3133 concerning capers layering.
So is it the same bill that we just passed out?
It's the governor's recommendation, so it would potentially give us a shell or a vehicle in the future if we needed one, since we've already passed this out, but it would make the record clear that that was what I intended.
Okay, so you made a motion, second by Senator Petty. Any, right? Any questions? All in favor? Aye. We'll make that change. Thank you. Anything else? Seeing nothing, committee, thank you for being here on a Friday. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.